the 2015 Act, and Karen Keane, who will give us a personal tale on her interaction with the legal intricacies of that Act. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sean O'Sullivan. I'm a barrister and a member of the Law Library. I practice mainly in commercial disputes and corporate insolvencies, with an additional focus on privacy and data protection. I'm the co-chair of OUTLaw, which was founded in 2015 to promote and drive the inclusion of LGBT plus people across the Irish legal community. We welcome members and attendees from every facet of the legal community, whether you're a sole practitioner in a firm or in any other organisation in any legal role, whether you're LGBT plus or an ally. We organise events in COVID times, webinars such as this, designed to highlight particular legal issues facing the LGBT plus community in Ireland. And we're delighted and honoured to be able to partner with Equality for Children for this particular series event on rainbow families, and to examine what is an important and rapidly developing area of law from the perspective in particular of LGBT plus people from the legal and personal perspectives. So before we go launch into it, I'm going to ask Ranae from Equality for Children just to speak a little bit about their mission and objectives. Ranae.
Thank you, Sean. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. As Sean said, my name is Ranae, and I am a same-sex parent with my wife Audrey to our two girls, Ava and Aria. I'm also the CEO of Equality for Children. Equality for Children is a not-for-profit organisation. We were founded in 2019 by a group of LGBTQ plus parents, and when we all came together to fight for equality for our children. There's a couple of key areas of work that we do. One of these is through political engagement in order to progress legislation that our families need, and we work with other organizations to do so. Another huge area of work for us is to educate the public and really to raise awareness, because as I'm sure you are all aware, so many people are still unaware of the inequalities that our families face every day. We are a fully volunteer-led organization, and if any of you would like to find out more about the work we do or ways in which you could volunteer with us, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us, either via our website or any of our social channels. We also have a wonderful legal team who helped to organize this event today, and I hope it's of benefit to you all here. Just on a personal note, I know how difficult it is to access information on this topic, so it's really important that we have free events like this. So thank you to the OUTLaw Network for partnering with us, and also thank you so much to Fiona and Karen for agreeing to speak today. So I will hand you back over to Sean now.
Thanks, Ranae. And we at OUTLaw urge everyone to support Equality for Children. They have a change.org petition as well in relation to trying to ensure equality for children through legislative change. We urge all of you to sign that. So please do get on the socials and look through all the links and how you can get involved. So to our first most impressive speaker today, Fiona Duffy. Fiona is a solicitor and a partner at Patrick F. O'Reilly and Company. She is chair of the Law Society's Litigation Committee, and she practices mainly in litigation across areas including contract disputes, defamation and medical negligence. She's also been involved in many court applications in relation to parental recognition. She has extensive experience in the area of assisted human reproduction, regenerative medicine, fertility treatment and surrogacy, and she's advised clients on cross-border parenting and speaks regularly in this area and on the rights of parents generally. We're very lucky to have her here today to share her wisdom with us and some insight into the relevant provisions of the Act. And so I'll let her do her thing. Fiona.
Oh, hi, thank you very much. And thank you for asking me to speak here today. Sorry, first thing I need to confirm is that I'm actually no longer the chair of the Litigation Committee of the Law Society. I was, but I've done my stint. I think being on Zoom is a little bit daunting because I'm not seeing my audience, so I'm not sure whether you're all absolutely riveted or bored to tears. But I've drawn the short straw, which is to talk about the legal aspect of things. And I'm sure you'd probably all much prefer to hear Karen, who's going to tell you about her personal story. Happily, I've been limited to 10 minutes, so you won't be bored for too long. I'm going to share my screen, hopefully, if this works. Sorry, oops, share. Sorry, hold on. Something's gone wrong. Sorry, hold on. pardon me, give me 2 seconds and I will come back on this. Yeah, there. There. Are you seeing that or not? No?
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Okay. There is share. There. Now, are you seeing it?
There you go. Yeah.
Great. Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that. Technical hitches. Now, I've been asked to talk on a very narrow area of automatic parentage, and so this is only going to be of benefit to the females in the audience. And unfortunately, this doesn't cover men, and in fact, this particular legislation is of no benefit to the men. Very briefly, and Sean has already introduced us, I'm in practice in Patrick F. O'Reilly. The company has been there for almost 100 years. And one of the founding partners was the third solicitor to be registered in Ireland. And, you know, I suppose sort of nearly 100 years later, I reflect on what she would think of how or where we are and what I am doing now, and then I wonder what it'd be like in 100 years' time. And I know we've made a lot of progress, but I really hope that more progress will be made, and that that I can talk to a group of men like this in time to come. The relevant legislation is the Children and Family Relationships Act, Parts 2 and 3. And they govern the rules concerning the parentage of a female couple. They came into effect on the 4th of May last year, so this is actually fortuitous. It was a year ago today or yesterday. And Section 5 of that Act redefines parentage, so away from the traditional mother-father to include a second female. The second female can only be registered as a parent if a DAR procedure is performed, and this is defined in the legislation. So I've just put it down there to make it easy. It's a donor-assisted human production procedure, which is any procedure performed in this state with the objective of it resulting in the implantation of an embryo in the womb of a woman on whose request the procedure is performed, where one of the gametes has been donated, where both gametes that form the embryo have been donated, or where the embryo itself has been donated. So they're sort of quite strict criteria. The legislation provides for the establishment of a national donor conceived person register. Minister is obliged to set that up, and he is obliged to make certain entries in the register in relation to any child born through donor assistance through a DAR procedure in the jurisdiction. And that's the information that goes on to the register: the name, date, place of birth, and the sex of the child, the address of the child, information in relation to the parent, the donor, the date the procedure was carried out, and the name and the address of the fertility clinic that was where the procedure was carried out. So as of the 4th of May last year, a child born through a DAR procedure, the parents are a birth mother and her spouse, civil partner, or cohabitant. And I think just for ease, I'm going to refer to that group, that trilogy, as a partner, if that's okay. And we had this very happy photograph in the papers there recently of the Cork couple who were the first to be registered under the automatic registration. So the intending mother of a child born through a DAR procedure and her spouse and her partner can be the parents, provided the donation, now this is the sperm donation, takes place in a donation facility in Ireland or abroad. The transfer takes place at a DAR facility in the Republic of Ireland. That information is given to all, specific information is given to all of the players, and that consents and declarations are put in place before the transfer. So I'm going to deal with each of the three people involved in this separately. The donor probably I'd give more attention to because it's slightly different, but the donor must be 18. He must receive certain information and he must make a declaration before he makes his donation. The information he has to receive is that if he consents to the use of his gametes in a DAR procedure, that he consents to information going to the minister if a procedure takes place. And his consent can be revoked at any time before a transfer. If a child is born, he will not be a parent of the child. His information will be put on the National Donor Conceived Person Register. The child may access information about him at a later stage and may be able to contact him. And also he's to be made aware of the desire to keep the register up to date, so that if he moves address, that he would update his information on the register. And then he also is entitled to obtain information from the register, but that's limited. He's entitled to know the number of children who were born from his donation, their sex, and their dates of birth. So that's the information he gets. Then he must make a declaration, which is essentially acknowledging that he got the information, that he knows that if his gametes are used in a procedure, that information about him will go to the minister, and then that he won't be a parent. And if a child is born, that he consents to his information going in the register, and he understands that the child may be able to access that information about him and to contact him when the child is older. And this is the information about the donor that goes to the minister and goes on the register. So it's his name, date, place of birth, his nationality, date and place where the gametes were provided, and his contact details. So finally, the donor is not a parent and has no parental responsibilities or obligations. The intending mother must be over 21. Like the donor, she must receive information and she must make declarations before the procedure takes place. And this is one thing that I think a lot of women find difficult, and I think the fertility clinics weren't particularly happy with it. But if a DAR procedure is performed, then information, irrespective of whether there's a pregnancy is achieved, information has to go to the minister at that stage. So she also, the information is that she will consent to, if she consents to the DAR procedure, that she will be a parent of the child, that the donor will not be a parent, that information about her will be entered on the register, and the child can access that information about the donor and contact the donor. And then she makes a declaration confirming that all of this information has been provided to her. She can withdraw her consent before a procedure takes place. And also her declaration must contain a consent to her spouse, civil partner, or cohabitant being a parent. So if she doesn't do that, then partner doesn't get a look in there. So spouse or partner must be over 21. Likewise, she must receive certain information and she must sign a declaration before the procedure takes place. So she confirms she's received the information, that her information can go to the minister if the procedure takes place. She acknowledges that if a baby is born, that she will be the mother, that she, along with the mother, will be a parent, and that the donor will not be a parent. So all of this documentation has to be put in place before any procedure. They're all bog standard forms that's set out in the legislation, so there's no sort of huge mystery attached to them. So the information about the birth mother and the partner that goes on to the minister and on the register is the name, date of birth, address, and contact details. So what are the obligations of the intending parents? When a procedure is performed, they must let the clinic know it has led to a pregnancy and the expected due date. And when the pregnancy comes to an end, it's interesting the way they've worded it, but when the pregnancy comes to an end, the intending parent must inform the clinic if the pregnancy resulted in the birth of a live child. And if so, they must provide the name, date and place of birth, sex, and address of the child. So that's the obligation on them to provide that information to keep the clinic's information up to date. So then how do these all tie together? At our facility, the fertility clinic, they have obligations. They can only perform a DAR procedure if the intending mother consents. They're responsible for giving information to the intending mother, for ensuring that the declarations have all been put in place before the procedure is performed, for passing information to the minister. And if they get all of the information from the intending mother after the birth, then they will issue the certificate. And it's this certificate then that enables the birth mother and her partner to register the two of them as parents of the child. The certificate that's essentially what the certificate sets out, which is the detail I've just discussed there. And then I like the simple man. It is complex, and he wonders how old he has to be before he can find out what's going on. But anyway, that's it in a nutshell. That is absolutely a whistle-stop tour, and I hope it makes sense to all of you. So I'll pass you back to Sean, I think, is it?
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. That's absolutely fantastic. That was a superb tour through the Act, and lets us all know what it is all about, effectively. We had a conversation last night in preparation for this, we'd urge consultation by people with the statutory instruments that are promulgated under this Act, because they can also advise you as to forms and stuff that may not be included in the Act itself. But I always love the wisdom of Calvin and Hobbes. So with that fresh in our minds, I always appreciate that. So with that fresh in our minds, I'll hand you over to Ranae for her chat with Karen.
Thank you so much. And thanks, Fiona, for that. Actually, I am learning something every day. I didn't actually realize that the second parent had to be over 21. That's very interesting. No, I didn't realize that. I just assumed it would have been over 18. So good to know. Karen, how are you?
Hi guys, hello everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I know you're very busy with lots of babies and toddler. Yeah, thank you for your time. I just wanted to kind of ask you a little bit about your family, let everyone know about your kids and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Karen. I'm also a same-sex parent to 3 children now. I'm married to the fabulous Clodagh, and we've been married for almost 4 years. And I suppose I got to know Ranae through a WhatsApp group, to be fair to say, that supports same-sex parents with sometimes legal issues, with legal jargon, with what forms to send where, and with the view to maybe meeting up with other same-sex families in the future and having our children meet up post-COVID. So through that, I saw the work that Ranae is doing for equality for children, and I'm very keen to be involved and be an advocate for the work that needs to happen over the next few months, hopefully, as legislation makes progress. For me, I am one of the people that I suppose has benefited from the current legislation, in the sense that my family is legally protected, in the sense that my family are legally protected as I have a legal connection now to my children. I am the second parent, or the spouse or the partner of the birth mother. I am over 21 actually, and I know that's probably surprising. But so we've had to still jump through a few holes and a few to go through a kind of a legal process as well in order for my family to be protected. But I think the emphasis needs to be on that I am actually one of those people, and probably a minority that are because the majority of families aren't protected at all. And I think that's where the advocacy really needs to happen. And it's groups like OUTLaw and Equality for Children and all you guys taking part here today that can really promote more progress and fairness and justice for families like our families, like Ranae's family. I suppose.
Absolutely. Sorry, I was going to just cut in there and ask a question, because you are in the really unique position, I suppose, of kind of straddling both lines. You were in the position where your family did not have that legal recognition for a couple of years with your older son, Freddie. And now you are in the position where you have had automatic registration for your new babies. So how has that been? Because you've been in that position, as so many people are, where your family is not recognized. And now, as you say, you are in a privileged position where your whole family is now recognized.
Absolutely. And, you know, it didn't really concern me initially, because, you know, you're just, when your baby is born, you're just taken away with all this that's going on. You're completely overwhelmed and you're completely in love, and you have this new bubble in life, and that's all that really matters. And then you start to think about, okay, where do we slot in here, and how are my children protected, and how can I protect them in all aspects of life? And I suppose I knew some of the legislation was being pushed through at that stage. You know, Freddie was born in February 2019, and at that stage, I think we had 5 failed promises that some of the act would be commenced. The 2015 act would be commenced. I think in total, Ranae, you might correct me on this, but we had 7 promises and dates that the rest of the legislation would be commenced within the act that would allow us to re-register our children's births, and we would become legal parents as such. But I only had, so from February 2019 till July 2020, that window of concern where my family wasn't legally protected. So a very short stint, I suppose, for me, but for my family, it felt like forever. When we look at some families who are waiting many, many years, so a very short stint for me. And I suppose what I'll do now is, just by way of introducing some of that, and we'll add a kind of personal touch to it. I'm going to just share my screen here if I can as well, and just, you'll get a kind of a feel for who I am and who my family are. So let's just see if this will work out. Share. Look at that. Okay, not that one. And I have to move this down here. Hold on. Isn't this just typical now? Yep. Go. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yeah.
So this is us. This is myself and my wife, Clodagh, on our wedding day in 2017. Unbelievable day for us. And again, because this little country had made so much progress in the years prior to that, and we go back to May 2015 again, where, you know, I had the realization, we were going out a couple of years at that stage, and we never even thought about marriage, because how could we? It wasn't within the realms of the law to get married. So there we are then, and a really happy day because of the progress and the legislation and the move in this country, and because of the pioneers and the people who have gone before us to say, you know, let's make this right and let's make this happen. And as soon as we were married, we'd been together 5 years actually on that day. And as soon as we were married, you know, the conversation straight away turned to children. We always wanted to have children. It's something we spoke about very early in our relationship. And I suppose now we kind of have to figure out, right, how do we do that? And I was going to skip on here to, I know you're all going, oh, to February or March. This is actually March 2019, and our first little boy, Freddie, was born. And, you know, I'll talk a bit in a bit how we got to that point, but there's Freddie, and yeah, we're just completely, the dream is coming true. We're completely overwhelmed and in love with him. Yeah, happy heads all around there. So moving on then, this is July the 31st, 2020. This is a significant day in our lives, because this is the day that we actually got the declaration of parentage within the court. We had to go into court and get that last year. So there I am, Freddie's official legal parent now at this stage. Not that he knows any different, but it was actually a momentous occasion and a real sense of relief for both of us. We're again in a really privileged position that we have a great family network around us. We have a very, very supportive network around us. But it was really important just to have that protection and join all those dots together and make sure that everything was in place. Really, should anything happen, me or a simple thing like being able to sign a medical form for him, or you know, registering him for school and things like that. So this was actually a huge sense of relief this day. Freddie is an awesome little fella. He's full of the joys of life. He loves being outside. That's a more recent photograph of him. Mad for the playground swings. There we are, just having some fun. He loves a bit of baking. And of course, last year we had to tell Freddie that he was going to be a big brother. And not only was he going to be a big brother to one baby, but two baby. Clodagh, when we decided we wanted more children, and there we are. Clodagh was pregnant with twins last year. And of course, Freddie looking at that going, what are they showing me at all? What's going on? Can we talk more about Santa, who's up there in the background? And that's just a very boring picture. So this photo is kind of significant. It's my wife there is heavily pregnant, and it's her last day as a family of three, because these two little dotes came along the following day. Now that they're a couple of weeks old, and that they were born 7 weeks early, so that brings a whole lot of issues and stress along with that. But everything is sweet. They're absolutely thriving. They were 10 weeks old yesterday. And this again is a photo of significance that I wanted to share with you, as this is their first time back together on the outside of the room. As they spent maybe a couple of weeks, spent about a week in an incubator as well. So this is them back together. And this is us showing Freddie that picture. Again, he just thinks it's all a big joke so far. And he's thinking, no, those babies are still in Mammy's big belly. That's not the situation anymore. For the first few weeks and this whole COVID thing, you know, obviously I wasn't allowed into the hospital, and neither was Freddie to meet him. But we were lucky enough when the babies came out of the incubators and they were popped in together like so. This is actually at the fire exit door of the neonatal unit in Limerick Hospital. And that's where we went to visit him every day. And you can see there, this is our first picture together as a family of five. That's myself and Freddie's reflection on the glass. And there's Clodagh, and this is Oscar and Anna. Again, some significant photos again here. This is my first day. They're 3 weeks old, and they got to come home on when they were 3 weeks old. And this is the first time I got to hold the babies. And then Freddie got to meet his brother and sister. There they are, all snuggled up. Freddie is a super helper and a super big brother. We are absolutely blessed with our lot. There we are trying to get out of the house. As every parent knows, it takes about 3 hours to get outside the door for a little bit of fresh air. My wife won't thank me for sharing this photograph. That's actually the day of my 40th birthday, a couple of weeks ago, and probably our only photo of the five of us together. And of course, we had to bribe Freddie with a bit of ice cream there to get into the picture. Here is every parent's moment of bliss. This is the moment you say, quick, put on the kettle, take out the biscuits, they're all asleep. And that's us. That is, I suppose, this is the human element to it. This is who we are talking about protecting, these little babies. These are my babies. This is Freddie, Oscar, and Anna. They're my little babies. And again, I can't emphasize enough that I am in such a unique position that I can now say that I have a legal connection to them, that I am their legal parent. And, you know, being a parent is stressful enough without having to worry about what if something happens to me, why can't I do this? And because you don't have a legal connection. And that's why the work of OUTLaw, the work of Renae's work with Equality for Children is so important. And I can't emphasize enough that how important it is for you guys to all get behind that and share to support these children. So
Thank
that
you,
was
Karen.
just
that you've made me not only emotional but very broody. I think it's time for us to have a few more. They're just so incredible, and it's so special to hear you talk about them, and
it is, and
the love of a parent.
listening to Fiona there really reminded me of all the things that, and all the boxes that we needed to tick in order to be able to benefit from the current legislation. I'd totally forgotten about it. Look, you get so you're so caught up with the day-to-day life of just being a parent that I had forgotten about some of that stuff, and having to sign declarations before Clodagh would go for the procedure, before she'd have any procedure within the clinic, that we'd have to, oh yeah, we've got this paperwork to do. And in fact, when Clodagh got pregnant last July, I wasn't allowed in for the procedures, it being COVID, but I was allowed in for a few minutes to sign the paperwork, of course, which is very important. But so I often say, you know, my wife got pregnant while I was outside waiting in the car.
I have one better for you. I got pregnant while my wife wasn't in the country with me.
There you go. There you go. I suppose I have a bit of experience in the sense of, because we had Freddie and we had to go back, and we had to go into court to get a declaration of parentage for him within the court system. Now that has been complicated all over the country, and in different courts. You know, when that came in last May, the court rules took another while before they were established and they were issued. So different courts took different views on the legislation, and looked for different criteria to be met. Whereas we were very lucky in Limerick, someone had gone previous to us, and again, it was someone that had worked in the court system, had gone in previous to us, and got their declaration. So the judge was very familiar with it. And by the time we had went in and looked for ours, it was very, very straightforward. And just to say, just briefly on that as well, because I know it's about maybe the automatic rights that we had now and we enjoyed with the birth of the twins. But going back to that, it was a very difficult process in the sense, you know, where do we find the information? Rang the family court office, they're not very sure. They weren't up to speed with what was going on. How do we get a court date? Solicitors weren't really in tune either. Some solicitors of what was going on and needed to catch up with the legislation. Luckily enough for, you know, being part of that WhatsApp group that I spoke about earlier for supporting same-sex parents, someone put up that, you know, LGBT Ireland had issued template affidavits on their website. So I was able to download them and edit them for my family circumstances. Hugely helpful, absolutely hugely helpful. Then they also had a document and what else you kind of need going into the court. We were able to tick the box, get everything together between marriage certificates, passport IDs. I even printed out some of the legislation. I actually just rooted out earlier, show you guys that this was all the information that we needed in going into the court. And at the time, it was only just a letter from our clinic to say, yes, this couple had a procedure within this clinic, and we can confirm such. So we went in, and as I said, the judge was very aware of it, and it was a really nice experience, to say the least. And
how much easier was it the second time around? So like what was that experience compared to now getting your twins registered?
So getting the twins registered was interesting. So I thought it'd be a lot more straightforward than it was. Mm-hmm. And so I just went in fairness, on the website, the HSE website, I had the information for DAHR registrations. I went in, and again, you just get the registration form that every parent fills out, filled out that. And I also needed to get a declaration signed by a solicitor. So that was fine. I'm again in a privileged position that I actually, a friend of mine's solicitor, so I was able to bring it over to her. Can you sign this, stamp this for me? No problem, done for you. And I also need a certificate from this time, based on all that, and all the documents we signed now before Clodagh went for a procedure, they were to issue us with a certificate. And again, I had forgot, I had rang them and told them Clodagh was pregnant. I had rang them and said, oh yeah, she's given birth to twins. And then I rang them saying, right, can you send me out that certificate because I need it now to register the twins? And absolute confusion. So they sent out the statutory instruments document. I think it's about 12 pages long. But within that, there is a template for my situation that the clinics were to kind of develop their own certificate. But that took a little bit of going back and forth. Look, eventually we got there. And I'm sure it'd be more straightforward. We were kind of in the position of being one of the first to have that registration process take place with that couple in Cork. Our babies were actually registered the very same day as those babies. I suppose there was a kind of a lot of teething errors, and I think those things are ironed out now and more straightforward for anyone else going forward, you know.
Lovely. Just a question has popped up in the chat that you could probably answer. What are the legal and medical costs of the journey from before conception and until the final steps of legal recognition? So just with regards to legal costs, did you have to use a solicitor for, let's just talk about the automatic recognition, because that's what we're covering today. So were there any costs involved in doing that?
Not for me. Again, as I said, a friend of mine is a solicitor, so a bottle of wine suffice. But like, you have to have a declaration signed by a solicitor or a peace commissioner or something, isn't it?
Commissioner of Oaths, is it?
Commissioner of Oaths.
Yeah.
So you have to have them signed. So I assume if you go into someone's office looking for that signature and looking for that stamp, you know, that's going to cost money. But other than that, legally, and the same with the retrospective registration, it didn't cost. I was confident enough with the legislation myself to be able to go into court, and I had my friend, again, the solicitor, had rubber stamped everything for me.
Okay.
And looked through my paperwork, but I was confident to I mean, obviously, I think it's costing 500 and upwards for some parents. And
with regards, we won't go into, because I know costs of fertility treatment can like wildly vary, but just give us a ballpark estimate on. If you I
actually know this, and again, it's probably so with our 3 children, ballpark about 18 to 20,000. And again, it's just that we kind of totted that up in our minds lately. And it can, as you said, Ranae, widely vary, and depending on what kind of procedure that would suit your family.
Yeah, and the question was also, are any of the costs absorbed by, say, the HSE? There is no current public funding model for fertility treatment, but you can claim tax back. So make sure you do that if you're going through fertility treatment. We actually forgot, and we almost missed a cutoff to get some tax back, which was nice.
Yeah.
Karen, thank you so much. One last question. Just to finish on a really happy note, what is your favorite thing about being a parent?
Being a parent, my favorite thing is actually, one of my favorite things, is so many, right? And I won't bore you to tears with it. Being a parent, I've realized, is my purpose in life. That's for sure. And one of my favorite things is when our children like do a little look, or Freddie does something, and the way he looks at the twins, or the way he sings a little song, or the way sometimes the twins give a little groan and they got the little dimples out. What I love is the way myself and Clodagh look at each other now, and we look at each other kind of going, we're filled with love, filled with pride. And that look has changed since we've had children. You know, the way you just look at your partner, your wife, your soulmate, that look has changed. And we have this new look that we can give each other that just acknowledges, wow, how lucky are we?
Wow, thank you so much. It's really special to hear such a personal perspective and story. So thank you so much for that. I am now going to, we have about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to open it up to questions. So if anyone has a specific question, if you could just maybe unmute yourself, maybe just introduce yourself, and then if you have a specific question for any of us, you can directly ask to us. Thank you so much.
So there's one question there in the chat for Fiona, and so it says, if both parents are recognized under the law of another EU member state, in our case Belgium, is it the case that the legal rights of the second parent, so the non-birth parent, are taken away on moving to Ireland despite the new legislation?
That's a loaded question. I'm not sure how the children in Belgium were recognised. Is it purely and simply by registration on the birth certificate, whether it was a court order? If it was a court order, then it might be recognised here. If it's the birth certificate, I can't answer that question. I don't, in fact, know what the answer to that is. So I apologise. I can certainly research it, but I'm not sure whether we are obliged to recognise. Generally, the Irish state take the view that they only have to recognise an Irish birth certificate, and they're not obliged to recognise a birth certificate that issues from another state or another country. So it's and also I mean, you need to know the circumstances of the two people we're dealing with. Are they living there? Are they both Belgium, or are they Irish? So there's a lot in it. I'm not going to be able to give you a straight answer on it.
And just to mention, if anyone does have any very specific questions like that, feel free to send an email in to either Outlaw or ourselves at EFC. Or on our social channels, and we will try our best to get an answer for you if we can. Yep, so any other questions, just unmute yourself and don't all go at once. I'm sure you all have lots of questions.
Hi, I have a question. My name is Marie Ford, and I am the chairperson of the Rainbow Network in the Central Bank of Ireland. It's an employee-led network that looks after the LGBT plus community. I just want to thank you so much for putting on this event today and the session of this series. It's incredibly interesting. And I guess a question that I have, maybe for both of you, is what sort of supports were made available to you around the time of your of you, Ranae, actually giving birth, and Karen as the spouse of somebody who had given birth? What supports were available to you from the organizations that you worked for, if you were employed in organizations?
I'll answer that quickly first. I wasn't at the time employed by any organization, so I can't specifically answer that question. And I found, just in general, at the time, we became parents first in 2016. We conceived in 2015. We actually had to go abroad for treatment. And just in general, there was a huge lack of support for us. We didn't have a network. We didn't know any other gay parents. We didn't have any sort of assistance, really, even just with information sharing and finding out how, like, the logistics of actually going through fertility treatment and becoming LGBTQ plus parents. So we found it incredibly difficult. And that's one of the reasons I'm such a huge advocate for, information sharing and supporting each other, because it's, as Karen mentioned, becoming a parent is incredibly difficult at the best of times, without having to add in financial and legal implications of becoming a gay parent in Ireland. So yeah, we found it incredibly difficult and virtually had no supports whatsoever. But again, we weren't, I wasn't directly employed by any one organization at the time. So I don't know about you, Karen.
Yeah, I work for a community organization in Limerick City, and yeah, I've been hugely lucky in terms of the support I've got from my organization. In terms of being able to take leave, paid leave, paternity benefits, and even before the twins were born this year, I was having, in a conversation I was having with my employer, he said to me, now the parents' leave is changing. You'll get 5 weeks. You'll probably get 5 weeks per child if you want to take that as well. So I was like, oh yeah, of course, thanks. So he had done the research. So look, really supportive organization, but it's a small community organization. So I guess I'm kind of lucky that way.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks, Marie.
Hi, my name's Jessica. I'm working HR for a company called Oracle, and I'm on the call just out of personal interest, to be honest. Myself and my partner Michelle may be considering having children in the near future. And my questions are, I think, are basic enough. One is just, has the birth certificate template been updated to reflect parent 1 and parent 2 now, rather than mother and father? Yeah.
So I'll just take this one first, and maybe Fiona might be able to add to it. But so the template is for Clodagh is actually registered as the mother, and I'm the parent on the birth certificate. The option on the registration certificate for families like mine was that we could register as parent and parent, or mother and parent. However, if, say, it was a heterosexual couple and they had gone through the same procedure as we had through a fertility treatment and got donor sperm, they could actually register as mother and father, which is kind of interesting and something that I need to look into a little bit further. But the option for me was we could do parent and parent or mother and parent. That makes sense.
All right, and probably kind of linked to that then, just out of curiosity, but what does Freddie call you, Karen? Does he call you Mam as well, or?
Yeah, so yeah, again, that's a very personal thing. For every family is different. Clodagh is Mammy and I'm Mama.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and sometimes you have an idea of what your kids are going to call you, and then they don't call you that. So your kids are going to call you what they want to call you. I ended up being Mama, although most days I get just called Ma. And my wife is called Mom, or Mom. Yeah.
Cool.
But the kids, they came up with that. Well, the first kid usually comes up with it, and the others follow suit.
Brilliant. Cool. Thanks a million.
No worries.
Sorry, my name is Mirren. I work in permanent DSB. I'm on the PRISM committee, which is the LGBTQ plus ERG. I just had a question based on what the work we're doing at the moment. If the legislation has updated so that Karen is listed as parent on the birth certificate, in terms of rights for leave after the birth of a child, were you entitled to claim paternity leave with the 2 weeks? It is paternity, is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. And even prior to the change in the legislation, when Freddie was born, so again, I had no legal connection, but I was the cohabitant or partner, spouse of his birth mother. So I could actually claim it then. I could claim the paternity benefit at 2 weeks then as well. That's all on citizens' information, is quite informative regarding that.
Thanks very much.
I'll just pop in here. My name is Maeve. I'm on the Outlaw Committee and involved with Equality for Children. But it's just great. I love the way people are just asking like different questions, like some are legal, some are medical, some are just family. And it's so good to have this space. And, you know, Ranae, you've done a great job in doing that for, you know, it wasn't there for you, that community, and it, yeah, to be able to ask the questions and see other people that are going through the journey. And just Marie, on your question there about what did the organization provide? My wife gave birth last October, and I was actually in the middle of moving jobs, so I didn't really get to avail of it. But the firm I was in at the time was giving extended parental leave, you know, to kind of to anyone really, you know, to if you adopted, if you were a surrogate, if you were a non-biological parent, you know, and it was so nice to know that that policy was there, and I didn't have to go and ask for special treatment, and I could just avail of something that was publicized in the company. So yeah, that was a really great step, and it'd be great if more and more companies did that, because it's hard asking to, you know, and you know, what am I entitled to? So I'd encourage as many companies as possible to do that. I don't know if anyone else on the call has examples of from their companies or firms.
Actually, if I might, and I know it isn't sort of germane to what we're talking about today, but one of the circumstances where, and this is, I suppose, for the people in the big businesses, is that if a woman has a child, or if a couple have a child through surrogacy, that generally there's no access to maternity leave. You're certainly not entitled to state maternity leave. So I am aware that a lot of companies do have policies where they will either make payments or continue salaries when the intending mother, even though she hasn't personally given birth to the child, but where she can actually get leave and spend that time with the child. There is adoptive leave, but there isn't leave for an intending mother in a surrogacy arrangement. So just it's something that Permanent TSB, Central Bank of Ireland, all of the rest of you who have raised your questions might just put that in your minds and consider making arrangements, suitable arrangements.
Absolutely, I would echo those sentiments entirely. There's no obligation on big business or any business to kind of do so, but I think at some point in the future there will be legislation enforcing it, and get in ahead of the game and lead the way and lead by example what is right, and anyone becoming a parent should be entitled to have time with their new child.
Hi, sorry, I just have a question regarding registration of a birth. So I was just looking at the HAC website, and it says civil registration services are closed at the moment because of COVID. So you can register by email or post. But when I open the form, it says like mother and father as parents, and it doesn't give any other option basically. So I don't know like if any of you have been in that position during the pandemic, or if you had to deal with that.
Yeah, there's definitely another form there under DAHR somewhere. I actually only sent it to someone earlier, but I just copied it from a previous message. But there is definitely, and maybe Ranae, you might be able to put up the link somewhere.
I'll look for it now and then pop it in the chat.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's great, thanks.
Can I just come in again, and thank you so much again just for mentioning the supports that other companies make available. Like we're a public sector company, and sometimes I find that with public sector companies or the civil service that they are waiting to see what the legislation is going to be before they bring some of these changes into place and benefits. And like we're going to do everything that we can. Like we are an employee-led network, and thankfully there are LGBT plus networks as well in the public sector. So we're going to be meeting shortly to discuss Pride, for example, and this is something that I can bring to their attention as well, just in terms of what we discussed here. So like the more people that are involved, the better it'll be. And I just wonder, just in terms of, maybe making any changes to legislation, is there anything in the pipeline at all in that respect, or is it just something that might gain momentum in time?
No, there is absolutely something in the pipeline. There is an assisted human reproduction bill that has been bounced around, I suppose, for the last decade, but there will be significant progress on that this year. There was a report recently commissioned by the Irish government by the Special Rapporteur for Children, Professor Conor O'Mahony, that was handed in December, and then it was published last month. And that is currently being discussed in government. And the recommendations within that report, which would include issues such as this for leave for parents through surrogacy. There are recommendations around that in this report, and we, along with a lot of other organizations, are urging the government to accept and implement these recommendations into the AHR bill going forward. So there is a lot of movement happening, and there are proposals on the table, so to speak. So it definitely is going to happen.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And thanks again to all of you. This has been a great discussion. Thank you.
No problem. Oh, thank you. Aoife has popped up the form there for everyone to see. So you can see there's the option of mother-father, mother-parent, or parent-parent. So if there aren't any other questions, I think we might wrap it up. As I said, if you do have any questions after that you think of, or something that you didn't get to, feel free to get in touch with either of our organizations, and we will try our best to get an answer for you. But thank you so much again for everyone for taking part today and being here. And thank you again to Fiona for your wonderful expertise. And thank you, Karen, for sharing your story with us. We will be back next Wednesday, and look forward to seeing some of you again next Wednesday. But I will hand you back over to Sean now.
Folks, that was incredibly interesting for me. All the questions and everything else, just really opening my eyes to all these things. The personal stories are heartwarming and quite emotionally draining, even just listening to it. But we can see even from Irene's question to Fiona, there are still problems even in this area where we think that we've made such big strides that still need to be overcome. We're going to see over the next 3 sessions as well the problems that people are facing, notwithstanding the progress we've made at this stage. So it's very important to keep our eyes on the prize, know that this is equality for all children we're aiming for, and that this is what this whole series is aimed at, highlighting not just the progress we've made, but the progress we still have to make. I want to echo what Ranae has said. I want to thank Fiona and Karen. Absolutely brilliant to have people with such insight on these matters coming. And I want to thank Ranae again for her brilliant management of the event. I want to thank Maeve Delargy indeed for kind of putting it all together, which is her brainchild. So we have to thank her certainly for that. I want to thank everybody today for tuning in. You make the events, and thank everybody who asked questions. And I hope to see you at each of the next 3 events. But until then, stay safe out there, folks. Bye.